Hi, welcome to Robey Elementary. We are here in second grade doing science today. We are going to learn about comparing life cycles and parts of a flower. And I would like to introduce, boys and girls, Mr. Rick Crosslin.
Hey, thanks for that great introduction. Life cycles. Boy, we've been studying the last couple of weeks a lot of different life cycles. In fact, the first one we studied was the life cycle of something that kind of goes, I'm trying to remember, it was a butterfly. And then we did life cycles of frog. And then it was the hard one. I can't remember what it was. It was like, it was a human. And then something I like to eat. Beans. And then we talked about two things called grow and develop. You remember that? Yeah. Okay. So grow is another word for getting bigger, right? Yes. And I bet at your house, that somewhere in your house, because your parents love you, there's probably a place where you stand and on your birthday they measure you, right? No.
They measure me every day.
Oh, every day they mark and say how tall you are? At my house, we would mark, when they were 1 year old and then 2 years old. And you know the funny thing about that? It kept getting bigger. It kept getting bigger. But I went to the doctor in my life cycle, and I've been 6 foot for a long time. Went to the doctor, and the doctor goes, 5'11". I said, no, I'm 6 foot. 5'11". No, I'm 6 foot. I guess when you get older like me, you don't grow as much. In fact, I started to shrink a little bit. Hope that doesn't keep going. The incredible shrinking person, no. But all living things go through a
Life cycle.
A life cycle, not a bicycle. And my life cycle, started here, as an infant and a toddler. Yes, I was a child one time, and it goes on down, and then I was a child and a teenager and a young adult, and then I was an adult, and I got married, and I had my little daughter, who's now grown up. In fact, she's so grown up that she has a little baby, my grandbaby. Then I had my son, that's his little life cycle started, and then I have my youngest daughter, who's coming back from college today. She's going to be an engineer, and then I'm older, and believe it or not, now I am a senior, old guy. But I'm not done up here. I still got this, I still got that. But there is one thing, I got some bad news for you. Or some good news. I got some news for you. Has anybody ever eaten peanut butter? Raise your hand.
I love peanut butter.
Oh, sorry, but you're gonna die.
What?
Wait a minute, I'm sorry. Does anybody ever drink water?
Yes.
If you drink water, eat peanut butter, you're gonna die.
I do it.
Wait a minute, everybody go like this. Do you breathe air?
Yeah.
Hate to say this, but one day you will die if you breathe air.
Everybody dies.
Oh, good. I guess the thing is, if you're a living organism on this planet, you go through a life cycle, and eventually all living things come into their life cycle and will die. So that may be the bad news, but the good news is, during your life cycle, do the best you can. Make the most out of it. A frog is a good frog. A butterfly becomes a good butterfly. And a human ought to be a good human. You only get one life cycle, all right? So I still got some up here to do. Now, we studied some life cycles, and then we talked about, on your life cycle, sometimes you get new parts. That's called develop, and that means new parts. Now, can anybody tell me, when you had your butterfly, right? The larva, when it got bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, that's an example of growth. But it changed from this little larva to a
Butterfly.
and it had new parts, right?
Yeah.
What are some of the new parts it had? Wings.
Patterns.
Antennas.
And less legs.
And 6 legs. Anything that's new, we call that a development or develop. Now, this is so weird. My grandbaby, her name is Rowan. Remember I told you the little grandbaby there? They were feeding her yesterday morning. I don't know if you ever fed a baby. How many people have a young baby? Okay, here's the deal about a baby. You feed them a spoonful of cereal, rice, and they go, and half of it comes out. Then you got to put it back in. Because, you know, one spoon takes like 5 times. They were feeding little Rowan, and all of a sudden, she's about 7 months old, they put the spoon in her mouth, and she went, dink. Put another spoon in, dink. Put another spoon in, dink, dink, dink. Something was being developed inside of that little infant.
Teeth.
What was it? Teeth. Teeth are a new part that's developed. Wouldn't it be terrible, like when I came home from the hospital, my mother, so proud of her son, Rick Crosslin, look at my baby. And if I would have went like this, with all these teeth, everybody went, ah, the baby has teeth. Lady, something's wrong with your baby. It's got all these teeth. I was not born with these teeth, right?
No.
They were
Developed.
They developed later. I'll tell you one even worse than that. So my little baby Rowan is developing new parts, just like the butterfly, or just like the frog. Who can tell me on the frog life cycle a new part? Yes.
It get legs.
It got legs. It was an egg, and then it turned into a tadpole, and then all of a sudden, dink, dink, and that's developed. Now, one other thing. When I came home from the hospital, I'm sure my mother was so proud of me. She brings home the little infant, not a little larva. That'd be terrible. Bring home a larva from the hospital. What's your name? Jenna. So, like, good thing, Jenna, I go over to Jenna's house. Hey, can Jenna come out and play? And your mom comes to the door and says, no, come back in 2 weeks. Why? I want Jenna to play now. Sorry, we've hung her in the closet. She's a pupa. Well, you know, that would be terrible, wouldn't it? Good thing you're not a pupa. Good thing I'm not a larva. So I come home from the hospital, and my mom shows me off, and there I am smiling, and I have this mustache. Did I have this mustache when I was born?
No.
That would be weird. Look at my baby. Lady, you better take that kid back to the hospital. I wasn't born with this mustache. It's not a part of growing, it's a part of development. So we're going to take a look at some life cycles. We're going to do a real quick review of some life cycles. So let's get our worksheet out. Okay, so go ahead on your worksheet, label the 4 stages of a butterfly. And what are they? What's the first one?
Egg.
Followed by a
Larva.
what?
Larva.
And what's the third stage?
Pupa.
And finally we have a
Adult.
very good. That's 4 stages life cycle of a butterfly. So besides a butterfly, we talked about a frog. And so what are the different layers of a frog? First there is the egg stage, and then the
Tadpole.
after the tadpole,
Frog.
and finally adult. That's very similar to the butterfly. Okay, so now let's take a look at the human life cycle. This is a quick review. You start off as a
Baby.
and if you're lucky, you grow into a
Child.
and then there's the
Teen.
teens and the
Adult.
and finally
Senior.
senior. And so this is the life cycle. Now, there's one thing that we've left off in all of these. In order for the next life cycle to begin, on a butterfly, you need a female butterfly and a male butterfly. And those are the symbols that scientists use. This is for a female, that's for a male, in order to make more eggs. And that happens with a butterfly, a frog, a person, and even our next life cycle, a bean plant. Let's take a look at that. So, we have our bean plant here, and it goes through, what's the first stage?
Seed.
And then the seed will,
Germinate.
and then it will turn into a,
Seedling.
and finally an
Adult.
Now, as you know, there will be no more seeds unless there's a male and female parts of the flower that work together to produce seeds. And that's what the focus of today's lesson is. You've been comparing these, and you notice a pattern? I see a pattern here. I see a pattern for life to go on, for offspring to go on. Now, but let's take a closer look at a plant and how it sends its offspring on for the next generation. You want to do that?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's take a closer look at flowers. I have 2 flowers right here. In fact, we're going to talk about it, and we're going to look at a model, and we're actually going to investigate some flowers. Yeah, are you up for that?
Yes.
Okay, so here's the deal about a flower. You need flowers in order for seeds to develop. In fact, the job of the flower is for attracting insects and making seeds for the next generation. But you know, flowers have a lot of different parts on them. I've asked Avery to read the section in our science book about flowers. Avery, would you read that first paragraph? And I might stop you. Go ahead, Avery.
Many plants have flowers. A flower makes seeds.
Wait, what did you just say? Read that sentence again.
Many plants have flowers. A flower makes seeds.
Hold on. A flower makes seeds? Who knew? I'll tell you what, take your pencil, underline that sentence, because that's kind of important. Read it one more time, Avery, as you underline it.
A flower makes seeds.
A flower makes seeds. Go on with your reading.
Look at the flower on this page. The outside part of the flower is called the petal. Petals are often colored. Colored petals may attract bees or other insects.
Go ahead and write the word petal on one of those petals and count the petals. How many petals you see? Avery, count them. Out loud.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
6. Write the word petal right there on that lily flower. P-E-T-A-L. There might be 7. We'll see. Finish your reading, buddy.
A powder called pollen is found inside the flower.
What's that again? Say that again.
A powder called pollen.
Pollen.
Is found
Inside the flower. Go on.
Pollen is needed to make seeds grow.
Now that little paragraph right there is pretty important. Let me show you what I mean by that. Okay, good job, Avery, by the way. Okay, so that was a lot of information about the importance of a flower. And we learned that it has petals. Now here are 2 flowers right here. Lovely flowers, right?
Yes.
And they have petals. And their petals, I see, oh, nice petals, nice petals. Their job is to attract an insect. And so in order for these flowers to make seeds, they have to give away something. And now, wait a minute. Oh, they smell lovely. They're giving away free sugar water. What do you call the sugar water that flowers have? Anybody know?
Pollen.
Not pollen, it's nectar. So these flowers are giving away free nectar. So I'm a bee flying around going, man, I'm hungry. Oh, I smell a flower. So I land on this flower, but their nectar is not on top of the flower. She keeps her nectar down here. Chomp, 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 chomp. I get my belly filled with nectar. What does she get? Nothing. But in nature, there's no free lunch. She actually gets something, you know. You'll figure this out. So now I'm flying. Wait a minute. Oh, I smell another flower. Oh, it smells so good. I'm still hungry. I land on this flower, but the nectar's down here. Chunk, 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 chunk. Now I have more nectar in my belly, says the bee. But what did these guys get out of them? See, their petals are like a restaurant saying, "Come eat here," like, you know, Golden Corral or Red Lobster. Come eat here. All right, well, you know what? So I'm driving down the street and I see this sign that says McDonald's or come eat. So when I see that sign, I go to the flower. So the petal like says, "Come eat here for free." So now my belly's full of nectar. But you know what? I smell another flower over here. So I fly over here. Oh, this one smells good too. I land on this flower. Chunk, 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 and I get my belly. But here's what happens. When I land on these flowers, I get covered in a powder called pollen. And that pollen, see now, remember I landed on here? I got covered in pollen. I took pollen from here and put it on this flower. And then I was covered in pollen and I put it on this flower. And I was covered in pollen and I put it on this flower. So the flowers actually get pollinated. They get pollinated. They give away free food and they get pollinated. And what do the flowers say after they're pollinated?
Thank you.
No, they say, "Ah, thanks, I needed that." Everybody say that.
Ah, thanks, I needed that.
And once they do that, it's kind of rude, but once you guys get pollinated, you go, your petals drop off, your restaurant's closed. No more free nectar. Your petals fall off, and you turn all your energy not into pollinization, but into fertilization and making seeds. Let me show you what I mean. Let's make a drawing, okay? Okay, just so you know what I mean. Here's a picture of a bee landing on a flower, sipping nectar from flower to flower. Now the bee is covered in tiny hairs. Nature has designed this bee and the flower together. Look at that. What is he covered in? Pollen. So he can't help but landing on the next flower and transferring pollen from one flower to the next. And if you look, they get so much pollen on them that sometimes they squeeze it down into their legs. And see that little yellow thing right there?
Yeah.
That's a little ball of pollen that they take back to their hive. So they get a belly full of nectar. So that's what they get. And what does the flower get?
Nectar.
No, the flower gets pollinated. So let's make a drawing of a flower and see which parts are really important in this pollination. Okay, now we're going to talk about some of the important parts of a flower. Let's start down here with a stem. Go ahead and draw this. And then the bottom of a flower, there's this part right here. Now, not all flowers are exactly like this, but we're going to make it look kind of like this. And this is kind of cool. Check it out. Huh. Oh, and let's make this kind of different right here. Okay. Oh, and let's put a tube going down here. Oh, and let's make some little babies in the nursery. These are little babies in the nursery, believe it or not. Now yours doesn't have to look exactly like this because not every flower is exactly like this. Got it?
Got it.
This is called the stem down here. You know that from a plant, right?
Yeah.
This is called a pistil, P-I-S-T-I-L. And it is the female part of a flower. Everybody say pistil.
Pistil.
I'll give you a chance to get caught up.
Don't take too long. You kind of know you're artistic there, but.
Okay, so I told you in order to make seeds, not only do we have to have the female part, but we have to have a male part. If you have your paper open to page 209, you might see these very same parts. Here comes the male parts, ready? And there's more than one. They look like this. They come up and they have a part like that. How many do you see on your drawing on page 209? How many of these do you see? Count them, let me know, just so I have an idea.
6.
6?
7.
7? All right, I'll make a few. Go ahead, and I'm going to make 7 of them. And guess what they're called? Anybody? This is easy to remember. They're called stamen. S-T-A-M-E-N. Everybody say that.
Stamen.
Say it again.
Stamen.
And you know how I can remember that's the male part? Look what it has in the word in it. Men, right? That helps me remember it. And here's the symbol for male. Good job, guys. But we just talked about pollen. And here's what the pollen is. Check this out. You guys add pollen to the tops of all of your stamens. There's a name for that top. It's called an anther, but you don't need to write that. What's important is this is where, wait a minute, I hear the pollen all right again. Go ahead and add your pollen to everything. Nice job. You guys are as busy as bees making that pollen. Okay, all the players are ready. The bee comes, he lands here on the flower, he climbs down here and drinks the nectar. When he does that, he gets covered in all of this, what? Pollen. And all it needs, now sometimes the wind will do this or other insects will do it. All we have to do is go ahead and take that. Take one piece of pollen and put it right there. That's called pollinate or pollination. That's when it pollinates. And guess what it does? This is so cool. It goes down this tube, down the tube. Nope. Goes down the tube and goes into here. And this is where it fertilizes. This is where the babies start to grow. I call it the nursery. So it takes pollen to go here for the pollen. So pollinate, fertilize, and then we get what? Seeds. So you have to pollinate, fertilize, and then we get seeds. That's pretty cool. Go ahead and pollinate your drawing. Okay, then something weird happens. Well, not weird, it's kind of natural. You know what? This flower, which also had, by the way, this flower had petals, right? Remember the petals that used to be here, right? Yeah. And the petals' job is to, you go ahead and make petals on yours, it's to attract the insects, right? But as soon as it pollinates, as soon as it's fertilized, the plant says, don't need petals anymore, don't want any more visitors. So it drops its petals and it says, doesn't need pollen anymore. So it drops its stamens. And this is so cool because this thing starts to shrink. This part shrinks, but this whole thing gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And depending on what it is, it gets so big that it looks like, and it becomes, this part falls off, and this becomes, no, it becomes fruit. This is an apple, orange, a banana. This whole thing swells up, and inside of the fruit is the seeds. The seeds are there. And that is the connection between flowers, pollinate, fertilize, and making fruit so their offspring go on. So this whole thing swells up. So next time you eat an apple or an orange, it started out as a flower. You're eating the pistil part of the flower. Ooh, no, cool. Let me show you this one more way. Okay, so here we have a model of a flower. And so what are these called? The
petals.
And the female part is the
Pistil.
and the male parts are the
Stamens.
and so here comes a bee. Get your bee up in the air too. You're a bee also. I smell something. Let's land and let's drink some. Now we leave. Fly away, bees. Thank you. All right. Fly away, bee, off to the side. Thank you. And now the bee, when all those bees came, pollen from the last stamen, or sometimes from the same flower, landed right there. And all of a sudden, that's called pollinate. And one piece of pollen goes down in here, and that's called fertilize. And as soon as that happens, the flower goes, don't need more bees coming. So it drops its petals, and it says, don't need stamens anymore. And so these are kind of hard to get out, but imagine that these come off, and then this whole thing starts to swell. Now that we've made a drawing of it, we've acted it out, and we've shown a model. But you know what we really need to do, and this is where I need your guys' help, is we need to set up a lab and actually dissect a flower. And so I have here, does this look familiar?
Yes.
Yeah. Would you go get your worksheet for me? Let's see. Let's have someone who has a good drawing that I could use, and the book. All right. Thank you. And thank you. So, does this look like the same, just about?
Yes.
And here's a nice drawing. Okay. So, these are leaves. So we're going to pull off a leaf. I'm going to show you how to do this, and it's going to be your job. This is going to be kind of cool. We have hand lens. Your first thing is, this hand lens has two lenses. Now there's a couple ways to use these. First, you can have the flower here and bring this close to it and look. Or you can put this up to your eye and bring the flower closer to it. Got that?
Yes.
Two ways. Now there's also two lenses. That small lens, when you get it, it's going to be amazing because it's much bigger. So see that small lens? I can do the same thing with it. Incredible. So the first thing I want you to do in your team is going to be like probably two people or so working together, is to examine the different parts, the leaf, the petal, the stamen, and the pistil. Got it?
Yes.
Then what we're going to do and see if they look, I think they look the same. And I'm looking at your drawing. It's an excellent drawing. Excellent drawing. So first I'm going to pull off, what's this? Leaf. And this is a petal. Take turns. Not one person does everything. So we're going to pull off the petals. One, count them.
2,
It'd be interesting to see if they're all the same.
3, 4, 5, 6.
I'd like to know if all these flowers have 6. And then we have these guys. These are not seeds. The void parts of the flower, look to your drawing, look to your book, they are called stamen. Let me watch this. Let's take one of these. One of these off, and I'm going to try something here. Ready? Yeah. You can see this or not, but I'm going to hit it right here. Oh, what is all that stuff that came off right there? Pollen. As a matter of fact, I'm going to take a piece of tape. Okay, I'm going to tape it across that pollen I put down, and then I'm going to smear it, and look what color it is.
Yellow.
Yellow.
For the banana?
No, most pollen is yellow. And in fact, you can see it right now, this time of year in springtime, all the trees, all the plants are letting their pollen go everywhere because they want to pollinate so they can fertilize to make
Food.
not food. They're killing me. What are they going to make, everybody?
Fruit.
But the plant doesn't care about the fruit. What's the job of the flower? You read it. The job of the flower is to, a flower makes seeds. Okay. And so then we're going to take this and I'm going to tape it. I'll probably tape this in 2 spots. One here at the bottom. And so the stamen doesn't fall, and then part of the stamen right there. Got it? And then you can still look at this with your hand lens. All right, so take turns. Not everybody pulls these off, but I count 1, 2, 3. Still got a lot of pollen. 4. And these are these the girl or the boy parts of the flower?
Boy.
Stamens. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's weird. 6 petals, 6 stamens. And we have left
Pistil.
pistil. Thank you. The pistil. Now, the pistil, I want everybody to look at this thing with your hand lens because it is so amazing to see this. I want you to look at it and check it out. It's got some cool parts to it. And then using scissors, you have some scissors. We're going to cut this, and I'm going to try to cut this right. Hand me a pair of scissors from over there. Anybody got any scissors handy?
She has a whole box of it.
Hand me a pair of scissors.
Okay.
Thank you. All right, so I'm going to take my scissors, and I'm going to cut down the length here, like this right here. Stay back, I'll show it to you. Stay back, because we're filming right here. And look, check it out. What do you see in there?
Pollen.
No, that's a tube. See the little tube in there?
Yeah.
That's where the pollen goes down. The nectar's not here. That is the tip of the pistil. And the tip of the pistil is a hollow tube that goes all the way down to this part. And this part right here, this is where the baby seeds grow. And I don't know if we'll see this, but you'll take your scissors. Where's my scissors? Oh, there they are. So this is a large tube. I'm going to cut that off. And you know what I hope to find in here?
Seed.
Nursery baby seeds that are growing. And so you might have to be real careful to cut it like this. Yeah, I'm cutting it like that. Yes, yes. I'm going to see if there's some babies in there. And oh, there might be some on your scissors. And when you open this up, I see some. But in order to see them, I need to use my hand lens and check it out.
I want to see it. I want it to be a surprise.
Yeah, ooh and ah, okay. And they're in there. They're in there. That's for the babies. They have not been fertilized. Are you guys interested in doing this lab?
Yes.
Okay, well, let's get ready.
I see the pollen.
What do you see? What do you see?
I see the pollen.
Cool.
Whoa, so cool. I can see like a shape. I don't know what
I can see
shape.
the leaves. See? I can see this.
I can see the pollen on it. Is the sugar? Is like the pollen? Is it like sugar?
The pollen's not, the nectar is.
So what's the difference between the pollen and the nectar?
The nectar attracts the insects, and the pollen helps fertilize the little babies in the nursery.
Do you see the middle thing? Yeah.
What's that middle thing called?
That's the
Yes, look on your drawing.
stamens.
The stamens?
The
Yeah.
pistil.
It's the pistil, right.
I found pollen right here.
You found pollen right there?
I
Nice.
found pollen too. Pollen, look.
I see pollen way down inside of yours.
It's filled with pollen. Mine doesn't have very much pollen. See my pollen? See the seed on it?
That's not a seed, that's the pistil, right?
There's that pollen right there that you were talking about on it.
I know, isn't that cool?
Yeah, it smells good. I can see pollen.
You're smelling the nectar.
I can see pollen on.
The stamen, right?
Yeah, the petals always have flowers on them.
They should have a nice smell.
Yeah, they do have nice smells when you smell them.
They must think you're a bee.
Yeah, bees.
Really?
Yeah, bees.
There's the pistil and the stamen. You got a beautiful one.
Boys and girls, what are the two jobs of a petal? Cameron, can you tell us?
To attract them to make nectar.
What do you attract them?
Like insects and bees.
Yeah, insects. Good job.
Take the petals off and start taping them onto your worksheet. Can we do that? Can we do that? Eyes on me. I can't hear you. Can we do that?
Yeah!
Okay, go for it. Using the
Should I
tape.
say on your pen?
Yeah, you need your worksheet.
Taping the petal and the sun just got stuck.
Okay, boys and girls, now I need for you to take off the stamens and take those to your paper, and then also see what happens with the pollen on your paper. Okay, and then don't forget to do the pistil. Now, boys and girls, we are ready to perform our butterfly song.
Butterfly, you're so fine. Climb up, down, up through the sky. Glide and just on and on. Listen to our butterfly song. The butterfly life cycle goes like this. 4 unique stages of metamorphosis. Stage 1 is the egg on the leaf. Just grow inside within that tree. Stage 2 is the gallant cycle goes like this. 4 unique stages of
Wow, as you can see, these kids are really into life cycles, butterflies, bean plants, humans, frogs, and even what is the job of a flower. Thanks, Mrs. Ferguson, for letting me come into your room and learn about life cycles.